Welcome to the 24th lecture of my class, Haiti, the most important country in the world. Now, this is kind of a strange day. It's October 27th, and weirdly enough, this is Voodoo and Vodou Monday for me. So over on my main channel, I'll include a link to it, I'm doing a review of the album Voodoo by D'Angelo, which I just happen to be talking about now, and I happen to be talking about this. So if you haven't seen my music reviews, go check that out. I actually do think the album does have a lot to do with the things we're discussing today. But other than that, what I want to do today is just talk about Haitian Vodou. Now, before I do, like, I am not Vaudouisant, okay? I'm not a voodooist. I believe in the gospel of Jesus Christ. I was baptized, confirmed Episcopalian. My father was an Episcopalian minister. I'm not trying to convert anybody or say anything that I'm about to talk about is spiritually correct in any way. If you believe that the God that you worship, I don't care which one, whichever God it is or gods that you worship, if you think that makes all other faiths invalid, that's your right, but this is probably not the correct video for you. If you think all other faiths than yours are by their very nature evil, this video is definitely not for you. So feel free not to watch it. I'm not asking you to. If the idea of other faiths upsets you, this is a trigger warning. You should probably leave. But I'm not actually really trying to talk about spiritual truth. What I'm trying to do is talk to you about intellectual history, social realities. And at the basis of it is this: the rejection, demonizing, and ridicule of African and African derived religions is and always has been a weapon used against people of African descent. That rejection, demonizing, and ridiculing is a tool of white supremacy. So, all I ask of you is to treat voodoo with the exact same level of seriousness you would treat any other living faith, any other living world religion. Okay? Because if you don't take it seriously, if you treat it as secondary, then I'm afraid you are taking part in a centuries long tradition of denigrating that which is derived from Africa. Now, this is going to, I don't know how long this is going to be. I have a class, so this is me preparing for the class that I'm going to be teaching. The class is 50 minutes long. That's not enough time to say. There's a lot more to say. And also, let's be honest, I'm not an expert on voodoo or Vodou or even Haiti for that matter. I feel like I'm a good teacher. I feel like I'm a good communicator of information. But please understand, if you are an expert on Vodou, or if you are a practitioner of Vodou, and you hear me say something and you think, Sky, how can you possibly say that? I say this with all the sincerity in the world. Please tell me. Please tell me in the comments where I get things wrong. I will say that it is not particularly easy to find hard and fast and consistent answers about the nature of Vodou, for as we will see, it has often had to be a secret faith, a secret religion. I found different things from different forces, from different sources saying different things. There's different spellings for a lot of things. There's a whole bunch of different beliefs, even just geographically. Someone in Le Cap might practice it different than someone in the Quai, right? It's just the way that it is. I will say, before I even get started, that my favorite thing is any religion which does not proselytize, which does not try to convert people, and does not harm people. So I would say to you who have stuck around, even though you might believe on some level that voodoo is equivalent to evil, which it is not, it's not even a form of witchcraft, it's a religion. It is just as much witchcraft as Christianity. I'll say that much. As somebody who believes in the communion. Anyways, it doesn't harm people. So at the very least, whatever you might think of it, it does not harm others. So let's get into my PowerPoint. Now I've given you this little setup here. Let's make sure this is all working. Let's make sure I'm still recording. I'm not just talking to my birds in the bird feeder right behind the camera. Okay, continue to share. Yes, all right. Students and friends, I am Professor Sky. My name is perhaps known to you. I've undertaken to teach about Haiti, Haiti. I want curiosity and a thirst for complex understanding to reign in this class. I am working to help that happen. Unite yourselves, students, and join with me for the same cause. Today's class is called Vodou. If you want to take notes, I suggest you take notes. So that's the question I'm going to be asking my students. Which active faiths should we take seriously? Now, there's a lot of dormant faiths or faiths that have kind of passed. Think of maybe the beliefs of the ancient Egyptians. I'm hoping what they will say when I ask them is all active faiths should be taken seriously. That doesn't mean all active faiths should be treated as the word of God, but they should be taken seriously. And this is where I'm just going to say it one more time for the people in the back who weren't listening. You were doing dishes and your headphone fell out and you didn't hear me say this. The rejection, demonizing, and ridiculing of any African or African derived religions are weapons used against the people of African descent and a tool of white supremacy. Thus is my thesis. Here's this beautiful image by André Pierre. This is a famous quote about Haiti, which I'm going to be sharing with my, with my students. Haiti is 70% Catholic, 30% Protestant, and 100% Vodou. So, what that means is that even though it is a Christian country, faith is not always singular. Faith is sometimes binary. Faith is, in fact, often binary or more than binary. It's often a multiplicity of beliefs that have all fed into something. Most faiths are hybrids of different things over time as they come together. And even most faiths, which we might think of as being like, oh, this is how it's always been, it's usually the result of a bunch of different changes. But Haiti is 70% Catholic, 30% Protestant, 100% Vodou. That is a joke, which is also somewhat serious. These are my sources. You will notice they are pretty old. Voodoo in Haiti by Alfred Métro is an old work, but despite its oldness, it's actually not particularly colonial. It's not particularly disrespectful. I think it's actually very useful. There's a documentary which is not on YouTube, but it's on Canopy. If you are a member of a college, if you're a member of a university, or if you're a member of a public library, you probably have access to Canopy, Kanopy. You can rent this excellent documentary there. Absolutely wonderful, Voodoo and the Church in Haiti. I also referenced this. I had my students watch this, Vodou or Voodoo. It's there's a religion website, a religion channel on YouTube called Religion for Breakfast. It's excellent. It's really, really good. I mean, I only know this episode, but I have to say, this is, this came out a couple years ago. It's a lot newer. And if you like what you see here, I think you should watch that as well. There's this professor from Boston College who's just excellent. She really helps out a lot. So, the question I'm going to be asking my students is what should we call this religious practice? Should we call it voodoo, which is what most people call it? Should we call it Vodou, which is actually technically what it is called when it's practiced in Haiti, or this fancy term that I came up with of a hybrid African belief system? I've heard other terms like this, African diasporic belief system, African diasporic faith. The main idea is this: it is a combination of different African faiths with different elements of Catholicism into a religion that exists on this part of the world. Okay? It is in many ways similar to a Creole, which we will discuss when we get to the lesson on language next week. So, as my students, what do you know about voodoo? And the thing is, a lot of what people know about voodoo is because of what is immediately behind this image, because of a famous court case, the Bisonton affair in 1864. Just for reference for you Americans, this is 2 years after America recognized Haiti as being an independent country, despite the fact it had been independent for 60 years. Anyways, the Bisonton affair. An idle laborer who wanted to curry favor with the gods, so he sacrificed his niece and ate her. Allegedly. Okay? This probably did not happen. Most likely it did not happen. It's amazing because if you've been following along this class, you know that the question of labor is one of the most important aspects of this class. How do the formerly enslaved and descendants of the formerly enslaved, how should they work? How much should they participate in the plantation system after a system that has taken so much from them? And when their their cultural tendencies is to be more small self-sustaining subsistence farming. Okay, so the idea of an idle laborer, that's like one of the real villains. There are many times in Haitian history where you could be arrested and thrown in jail for not working on a plantation. Post slavery. Okay, that's what we're talking about. All right, anyways. So all of this is allegedly it probably didn't happen, and there's a public trial, and there's 8 public executions. Now, the reason that I'm telling you this is not like some kind of true crime thing, right? Like I'm not going to be sitting there saying like, and then she went home from school, but then she got eaten. I'm not going to do that. It's because this matters a lot. This had a huge impact in the way that the Vodou religion, and by extension, the Haitians themselves were perceived. At every single turn, I need you to understand that the way that Haitian Vodou is presented is very linked with how people feel about the Haitians themselves. And very often, the exploitation, the ignoring, the punishment of the Haitian people derives from superstitious and wrong beliefs of the Vodou religion, of treating the religion like witchcraft. They are two different. What are these balloons? I don't know what my computer's doing. I apologize. What was that? It's not witchcraft. Balloons. Okay, let's get back to the slides. What was that? The important thing is this was ordered by Gefrard. So this class is a history class. It's also a sociology class. It's also a literature class. I'm trying to get into a lot of different stuff. But where we are in Haitian history is the reign of Gefrard from 1859 to 1867. And listen, we already talked about this in yesterday's class, okay? But one of the most important things that he did was that he waged war on Vodou. Before him was Faustin Soulouque, who is a bad puppet. So the people in power, the elites, especially the elite people, the elite mixed race class of urban Haitians picked him thinking he would be a weak ruler that they could push around. He fired everybody and killed everybody he didn't fire and took over. And he allegedly practiced a lot of Vodou. And why allegedly? Why do we not know? What is the interest of making him seem very into Vodou? It is to further humiliate him. As we learned in yesterday's class, in class number 23, the way that Soulouque was depicted, the way he was described, was part of an American propaganda, an American, a French, a European, a worldwide white supremacist conspiracy to depict the people of Haiti as uneducated, as uncivilized, as cruel, as savage, and as demonic. Okay, that conspiracy persists to this day, but this is one example of it, the way that Soulouque was presented. The demonizing of Vodou helps to justify the exploitation of Haitians. I'll just say it one more time. The demonizing of Vodou helps to justify the exploitation of Haitians. Okay? Just listen. Let's get political here, okay? Some people lost their jobs because they implied that a political commentator who was shot and said that it's okay that people get shot because it's worth it to have guns. Some people got fired for commenting on that fact. Now, I don't think that was a tasteful thing to say. I don't want people to die, all that stuff. But that's a pretty direct correlation between gun violence is to be accepted and then someone dies of gun violence. Just regardless of who it is we're talking about, that makes sense, right? If I said like the most important thing for me is to go bicycling with no helmet and I die by hitting my head on a rock while bicycling, you'd probably comment on that. When the 2010 earthquake happened, a very prominent American evangelist, Pat Robertson, basically said that Haiti did not deserve sympathy, did not deserve respect, did not deserve aid because of the voodoo ritual that we will be studying soon that was at the beginning of the revolution. Essentially making the evilness, the perceived evilness of Vodou with the value of the entire country and its entire population completely intertwined. It's really important that we take Vodou seriously. That's what I'm saying. Anyway, let's get back to Gefrard. Now, Vodou had been banned. You'll notice I will use the term voodoo. I'll use the term Vodou. I think Vodou is more proper, but I don't know. It's been auto-corrected and it's the same basic. It's not the same thing, but it's how it's understood. But Gefrard really enforces this ban. And I want to take a second to study what he said. Because here's the question, right? Why would a black leader or a non-white leader of Haiti go out of their way to ban the religious practice of much of the people? A lot of Haitian history is the desire to be taken seriously, is the desire to be recognized. Why did Haiti go into such great debt in 1825? It went into great debt to France because it offered to pay France back for the property that France lost with the freedom of the people. The property, which is to say the plantations and the people who were forced to work on them without being paid, they had to pay France back. They couldn't afford it, so they took out a loan. Why did they do that? What did they get in return? They were recognized officially by France in 1825. In 1862, finally, they were recognized by America. Recognition is a very important thing. The people of Haiti were doing more than just trying to be free. Their success, their thriving was evidence of the evils and unnecessariness of slave labor and of the equality of all human beings, especially people of African descent. So when I talk about there being a conspiracy to keep the perception of Haiti down, I'm not speaking jokingly. This isn't a fake conspiracy. This is a real conspiracy. And we talked about it in the last class before the Civil War. Before the Civil War, sometimes it was actually illegal in Congress to talk about Haiti. I mean, to talk about slavery. Before the Civil War, you couldn't talk about slavery in America. So instead, they talk about Haiti. The abolitionists were desperate for Haiti to succeed because that would be proof of the iniquity and uselessness of slavery. Meanwhile, people who wanted to keep up slavery were hoping as much as they possibly could that the state would fail, so that would prove the inequality of blacks and whites and the need for white supremacy and the need for slavery. So all of these leaders, and most leaders of Haiti, and many, many public intellectuals from Haiti, many people, when they are speaking outside of the country to people who are not in community, the way they talk about voodoo is, oh no, that's evil, that's bad, I don't do that. Because they want to be taken seriously, because they know the way that the media has depicted since the Byzantin affair and all the way up through the 20th century, all the way through cinema, all the way to the point where we just use the word voodoo, and you can go to Spirit Halloween and buy a costume that says Voodoo Man. We have turned the word voodoo into something to scare people and to think it is primitive and backwards. And it is because of the racism. And if any leader like Gefrard is doing that, it's not just that they might be very Catholic, it's that they know that Haiti will not be taken seriously as long as it is seen as a voodoo nation because people don't understand voodoo and they don't want to learn. So, what did Gefrard say? Gefrard would say, let us rush to eliminate the last vestiges of barbarism and slavery, superstition, and the shameful practices surrounding it from our land. Let us rush to eliminate the last vestiges of barbarism and slavery and superstition and the shame. That is interesting. Okay, look at these words. You know what these words are describing? They're describing a religion, everybody. This is a religion. This isn't witchcraft. This isn't black magic. This is a religion. We could be talking about Methodists. We could be talking about Shia. We could be talking about Shinto. We could be talking about, okay, we could be talking about anything. And this is the way it's referred to by the leader of the country, of the religion that is practiced by most of his subjects or of his people, of his citizens. Barbarism. Religion. Just as a reminder, a religion is the belief in and worship of a superhuman controlling power, especially a personal god or gods. That happens to be the case. Okay? But which one of these words is not like the other? Barbarism, slavery, superstition, shameful. What's slavery doing in there? Barbarism is a word implying something that is unsophisticated. Superstition is applying something, sort of an excess of belief in things that can't be proven. Shame is a negative emotion. Slavery is not a negative emotion or a negative descriptor. It is a descriptor of a state of being of, at that point, the ancestors of every single person, with the exception of a couple, whatever, maybe 1,000 white people who were there at the time. All right. So what does this all have to do? Well, obviously, the history of Vodou is the history of the slave trade. That's why I think we laugh at it, because we don't want to think about the truth. This is basically how the slave trade worked through these regions. All right? What this led to, upon arrival in the New World, was uncentralized social structures, no common language, hence the need for Creole, and no common religion. Slavery is a cultural apocalypse. That's what it is. It's a complete severing. It is a complete separation of the past and the present. It is a complete elimination of one's ancestors, of one's heritage, of one's culture, of one's language, of one's religion. It is a complete severing. It is a complete cultural apocalypse. Every single thing that you say, that when I say the word culture and you think of how that relates to you, I want you to imagine that that has now been taken away from you. And you have to cut sugarcane and get little nicks on your legs all day and maybe get boiled to death in a vat. So, Vodou is a new world religion that responds to this cultural apocalypse. It is a frantic attempt to maintain some amount of the past, some amount of heritage, some amount of culture. Let's take the example in this class. If this is your first time viewing, go back and watch my older classes. They're pretty good, I think. I tell the story of three different people who were enslaved. And I tell the story of where they come from. And I try to trace out their history. But I made a point to point out that they're not all from the same basic parts. Okay? So the Congo people of West Africa, that's where this guy was from. This is where Black X was from. Black Y was born a part of the Wolof people of West Africa. Okay, so totally different, very, very far away. And then finally, Black Z was from there. So what you can imagine, her being a Creole born into slavery on the plantation, is you can imagine that these three people all have different religions. You know, a Wolof religion, a Congo religion, and a Catholic religion. Like, how are these people going to form a nation together? How are they going to form a culture together? How are they going to do it? How are they going to have any kind of cohesion? The metaphor I came up with, and I said it before, and I'll say it again, is imagine that like 10,000 Muslims and 10,000 Christians and 10,000 Jews and 10,000 Buddhists were all abducted and taken to Mars to, I don't know, dig rocks, okay? If they were all there together and they were told to worship the new god, God Zerblots, who's the Lord and Savior of all things, and they had to either worship Zerblots or just be murdered. So they'd say, "Okay, I love Zerblots." Like, would they not, in their own private life, figure out ways of developing some kind of connective religion to something that they understand? Would they not form something? Would you not, if you were thrown up to Mars, you were thrown up to a totally different world that you didn't understand? Would you just let it go? Okay, I'm going to have a new name. My name now is. So I used to be Sky, but now I don't have any music, I don't have any family, and I don't have any language because I have to try to figure out how to talk to these people from China. So I guess I have to learn how to speak Martian so that I can talk to them. And then my faith is taken too. So this is the melting pot, the mixture, the African hybrid religion that was founded. Now, most of it came from the Dahomey Kingdom, which is in that part of Africa. Most of it comes from there, like the word Vodun means God or spirit in Fon, which is a language spoken in Benin. Many other words as well, which we'll get to soon. Many of the Loa are actually from there, or Loa. This, again, I don't know how to pronounce this properly. I think it's Loa, but someone corrected me and said that that's how you say the word law in French. And I know that, I'm a French teacher, but I don't know how to properly say it. But importantly, not all Loa are from there. Some slave ships carry ungan, which is a Dahomean word for priest, and mambos, which is a Dahomean word for priestess. So they transplanted and slightly transformed the religions of Dahomey. Okay, and of course mixed in other religions from other people, other aspects from other people in that area too. But from what I understand, most of it comes from there. And they even at times had some faint echoes of Islam, which had, of course, traveled out throughout a lot of Africa. Which brings us to this image of Versailles. And if you've been following this class, you know I'm going to talk about Le Code Noir, the Black Code, which talked about how enslaved people, again, I apologize for this old slide, it should say enslaved people, but they just use the term esclave, so I'm not going to be more woke than this text itself. I mean, I am going to be, but I'm not going to use terminology. So it was codifying how slavery was to work in the New World. And it said that slaves could not work on Sunday and they must be baptized Catholic. And those were really the most important parts. So that meant that they had to be taught in the ways of Jesus, and they all were. That's why Haiti is a Christian country. It is. I'm talking about voodoo right now, but it's still a Christian country. I read somewhere, I forget exactly where, I think it might have been in Metro's book. Metro, but the Christianity is a break on the desire for freedom. And that is a way. There are different ways of reading the Bible. You can read the Bible saying that it is preaching liberation, and you can also read it as saying it is preaching subjugation. And it depends on how you teach it. And anyways. Now the Vatican, if you remember from last class, took a long time in recognizing Haiti as well, even though it was a Catholic country. I explain this to my students, the most of the New World is Protestant. Not most of the New World, but like America's Protestant, most of Canada's Protestant, but not Louisiana, not Quebec. That's because anything that used to be French is Catholic. So it used to be French, and so it's Catholic. It should be just as Catholic as Mexico or anywhere else. But the Vatican resisted. See what I said before about the success of Haiti is perceived of as a slight against systemic racism. So the church abandoned Haiti, but there still were priests. They were these renegade priests. They were the rubbish rejects of French and Spanish churches. Like, I don't know where to go, so I guess I'll just go to Haiti. But what did they do? They knew that they should just wrap in some voodoo items, that they should try to connect with the people on their own terms. When, sorry, when McDonald's sells Camembert burgers in France, you got to try to serve the people who you're trying to sell to. So if you're trying to sell Christianity to a bunch of people who believe in Vodou, then you need to integrate some elements of Vodou into your Christianity. It just makes sense. That's how you proselytize. So, Vodou is a faith. It's a resistance, meaning it's like also kind of a movement. It is a pro-African faith surrounded in a sea of European dominance. It is tied into dancing, the drums that are played, the rhythms that are played. It is tied into music. Now, the question I'm going to ask my students is it monotheistic? To which my students are going to say, Professor Sky, yeah. What does monotheistic mean? I got you. I got you. That means belief in only one God. So Christianity is monotheistic. Judaism is monotheistic. Islam is monotheistic. Is Vodou? Yes, it is. There's just one God. Le grand maître, bon Dieu, the good God. But the thing is, God is distant. He is not like one of us. He is distant and unreachable. He is completely unconcerned with life down here. And frankly, that makes sense. If I were God, I don't know about interventionist gods. And I guess if God exists, it has the time to think about everything. It has the time to think about the mourning dove out my window and has time to think about me. But still, it makes sense that often gods, the one God, may be merciful and may be lovely, but is often quite distant, which means he needs an intermediary, somebody between you and God. So I'm going to ask my students, any other religions look like that? I love using these weird little business PowerPoint slides. I do it ironically, but I don't know if you can tell that. I included the watermarks there. Any other religions require intermediary with God? I'm hoping that they know that that's what Christianity is, that Jesus is sort of an intermediary. He's, God's presence on earth, and that priests are like that, and saints and popes, right? So the things that represent that intermediary are the loi. And this is, as far as I can tell, the most important thing to understand about the religion, the faith system of Vodou. These lois are best conceived of as spirits or saints or ancestors. Like they they sort of encapsulate everybody's past. Like people's souls and spirits get sort of, as far as I can tell, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Vaudouisans out there, get absorbed into a Loa. That to respect and love the Loa is to respect and love your ancestors as well. So let's take an example. Let's take an example of my personal favorite Loa. I don't know why I have one, but I do. Okay, I've studied them a fair amount, and I like Dambala. Okay, Dambala, who is one of the Rada family. What does that mean, Sky? Well, let me tell you. I'm just calm down. So there are different kinds of loi. The loi are broken into families. Okay, so you have bon Dieu, and then underneath that you have families of loi. As we will see, there's 21 families, but two sort of main families, and then a bunch of other kind of smaller families, and then the smallest families. So there's bon Dieu, there's the families, and then there's the loi within the families. And each of the families has a different nature, has a different aspect, has a different energy, has a different kind of spirituality. All right, so let's talk about it. Let's talk about where Dambala's from. The Rada family is the old Loa that come from Africa, especially from that Dahomey region. And then the Petwo, sometimes written as Petro, are the new Loa from Haiti. So since coming to Haiti, they have been invented or found. So these are the two primary kinds. And I think it shows, it's just fascinating, right? Like their religious system had to weave in this great disturbance of being dragged across the ocean against their will. And they created at least two different families to represent these two different kinds of intermediaries with God. Is this not super interesting to you? God damn it. It's so interesting. It is such an interesting faith. My whole life, I was terrified of it because I saw some movie. I forget what movie I saw. It was some movie. Ah, maybe it was Serpent in the Rainbow or something. I don't know what it was. I saw some movie and it just scared me. And I just heard the word voodoo and I heard the word Haiti and I got scared. But look at how complicated this is, that we have these two different families. So the Rada are the old Loa from Africa. They are old. There's no members of that family from after the end of slavery. They are generally kinder and they are characterized as being cool. Their energy is cool, is smooth, which makes sense that in the New World, far away from Mother Africa, far away from your village, far away from your family and your ancestors, in this God-forsaken mosquito bit hellhole where you have to cut down sugar 12 hours a day, that's where the New Loa come from. They're more cruel and their energy is much more hot. In that great documentary, the Boston College professor points out that the dances for the Rada are often kind of smoother, and the dances for the Petwo or the Petro are a little bit more jerky, which is like all a part of how this religious system comes together. So that's Dambala of the Rada family, who plays a role in creation and peace. There's like this whole story where like Dambala basically created the world and then like from the water and became a rainbow. And then when it lives on Earth, it's a snake. Like it's just a snake because snakes are near water. And like what is existence? What is human existence except the search for water? That's really all. I mean, for 99.9% of human existence, we have just been like, where's water? Where's water? Where's water? It's only been like the last fraction of a millisecond of human existence that we've had time and energy to think about anything other than where's water. So it makes sense that the most important spirit or the creating spirit would be Dambala and snakes are often found near water. So it makes sense. Very elemental, seen as responsible for water and rain. Most Loa are connected with a color. The Dambala is connected with white. And again, if you are Vodouisan and this is not correct at all, please tell me. If this is only correct in certain regions, please tell me. I don't pretend to be an expert. I'm just trying to share what I know. And I'm pretty sure what I know is good to share. But please correct me if I'm wrong. And you have to give him offerings. That's the idea. You have to give offerings. That's why they always have things, because they're trying to get the Loa to show up. And Dambala has a veve. This is what a veve looks like. To devout practitioners of Vodou, I believe you could see this and know who each of these people were. It's as though it's a signature. Veve are these symbols that are designed for each Loa, usually drawn on the ground during a Vodou ceremony, as a beacon to attract the Loa. That's constantly the idea, to attract the Loa. How do you get them to come to you? So you call upon them. Let's say you want to have a Dambala ceremony. Let's say you want to get Dambala to show up. Let's say, I don't know, you want more rain, or I don't know, you just want to honor your ancestors and you think they're connected with Dambala. Why does anybody do anything religious? Because they have big ideas and they don't know how to, just because that's why. And so you want to commune with Dambala. So you draw the sign on the ground and then you have a ritual. You probably light some candles and you have drumming and be a particular kind of rhythm, depending on the place, depending on what Loa you're trying to get to. The rhythm would be there, the drumming and singing. And just one second. Just one second. If you've ever liked music that has a drum in it, you have to thank Africans. That's where it all came from. It all came from there. Every single song you've ever heard that has a drum in it, it all goes back to Africa. Now, a lot of it went through the Christian church. And then before that, a lot of it came from African drumming. So, anyways, just saying. You can't like rock and roll and look down on African culture. You just can't do it. So, Dambala would be called upon with the ceremony, including drumming, singing, dancing, possession, quotes. I'll talk about that in a second, and sacrifices, animal sacrifices, not little girls, animal sacrifices. And it's all about serving the Loa. But as is pointed out in that great Religion for Breakfast video, it's not serving like, oh, I am so bad. I am your servant. It's more reciprocal. The way that it's seen is more reciprocal. Like you are giving to the Loa and you expect the Loa to give to you and for you to have a connection. And that's how they see it. They see these ceremonies as being serving the Loa. Unfortunately, I cannot show this to you. I want to show you this depiction from this great documentary of a Dambala ceremony. So I'll just describe it to you. It's a large group of people by a river. This Ungan right there, the guy in the middle with the kind of white scarf thing and the tiny chair, sits down. He breaks a chicken's wings, takes off its beak, and at that point, all those women in white jump into the water. They kind of start thrashing around, kind of rhythmically, and there's drums playing, and then they get out. And that's basically everything that is seen. Later on, they show similar ceremonies for Ogun, who's a different Loa with the drumming and the candles. And okay, the term possession is a tricky one, and people who really study and love Haiti and love Haitian Vodou or who love talking about it don't like it. Do you know what's a better way to think about it? Mounting the horse. The way that they see it, the term they use is cheval. Not for nothing, but up in Quebec, the term for a heavily thick French Canadian accent is called joual, because that's how they say the word horse. So these are two different French speaking nations, former colonies of France, that have so much importance on the word for horse. Cheval, cheval. Anyways, mounting the horse. So what does that mean? I'll show you. Look, that's you. That's the Loa. That's the goal. Through the dancing minutes to hours of dancing in sort of a rhythmic way. I mean, obviously a rhythmic way, but sort of a transcendental way, and moving your head and hearing and seeing the candles and dancing and moving and drums. And after enough time, the idea is that the Loa takes you over. You are just being ridden around. You are no longer there. The Loa is there on earth through you, riding you around like a horsey. There is a famous Vodou ceremony that we have studied in this class. I believe it was in class number 4. That is, of course, the Bois Caimont ceremony, which is really important. It's really important because this was the beginning of the Haitian Revolution. This was the beginning of breaking free of slavery. This was a secret meeting of enslaved people in the alligator woods, the Bois Caimont. This is where they got together and said, no more serving the God of the white man. We must break free. This was the beginning of everything. And it is perceived of and seen as a Vodou ritual, which means that the beginning of the entire country comes with this myth of this moment. There's the sacrifice of the animal. There's the drums, the music, the dancing, the hungan, the tibukman, the mambo, the priestess. It's all there. All the elements are there. You even see some veve down there, presumably the veve of Ungan, the law of power, politics, sometimes of war, but it's very complicated. All right. Blood pact of solidarity, the confidence of the blooded, and the secrecy. So we're still here on Dambala, okay? Just giving you an example of one. And what's fascinating is Veve is associated with St. Patrick. St. Patrick, everybody. What do you associate with St. Patrick? I know. I know. I know. Isn't this a funny world we live in? Isn't this a funny world we live in? Not those St. Patrick, this St. Patrick. So you might be wondering why. I might even give you a second. Why would you associate Dambala with St. Patrick, the person who introduced Christianity to Ireland? Huh. Why? Because he was known, probably apocryphally, he was known for banishing Snick. He's the guy who got rid of the snakes. So it makes sense that they would say, okay, there's a Catholic religion with somebody who gets rid of snakes. We have Dambala, so we're going to do this. So why would they do that? Sometimes you might go to a place of a Vodou space to prayer and have ceremonies, and there might just be a portrait of Saint Patrick. But for them, that is also a portrait of Dambala. It is two things at once. So why? Why would they use Christianity? Why? Well, there's a couple reasons. One, to hide in plain sight. Again, let's pretend that we go up, let's pretend that we are up in Mars, okay? Let's pretend I'm a Christian and I'm up there in Mars, and they tell me all about Lord Zerblotz and how Lord Zerblotz had a son who was crucified, and the Zerblotz's son was named Floofy. And so, like, I just put up a painting of Floofy in my room and be like, "Dear Floofy, thank you for dying for my sins." All right, like that's what you would do, hiding in plain sight. Because again, for most of Haiti's history, it was either explicitly forbidden or it was frowned upon. But it was always supposed to be a secret, especially from the outside world. Also, Catholic missionaries, those rejected priests intentionally drew parallels because they knew that was a way to tie them in. So, like, how far is that? Because Haitian faith is quite binary. It's not just one thing. You can actually believe in Loa and saints. You can believe in Jesus Christ and Bon Dieu. Like, you can actually do it. It is possible. These are faiths. These aren't, sorry, they're not facts. They're faiths. They're belief systems. How much can we change and absorb belief systems? As much as we want. But also, all religions do this kind of thing. It has a term. It's called syncretism. Ooh, what a nice word. This is from Wikipedia, the free encyclopedia. Hey, that rhymes. Religious syncretism exhibits blending of two or more religious belief systems into a new system. The incorporation into a religious tradition or beliefs of unrelated traditions. It is contrasted by the idea of multi-religions belonging to polytheism. So it's not polytheism. It's like this blending together. And it's a way of taking traditions that you don't believe in and using them in ways that you do. It's like a funny mix, you know? Like every year, my family and I celebrate Saturnalia. It's this ancient Roman festival and holiday in honor of god Saturn, of course. And the same thing with Samhain, right? Which is actually coming up later on this month, because I am of Gaelic origin. My family is from Scotland. I'm related to Druids and stuff. We celebrate on November 1st, the end of the harvest season, of course, because that's the darker half of the year. But we call them Christmas, we call them All Saints Day or Halloween for that matter. That's what we call them, but it's syncretism, pure and clear. Jesus wasn't born in December. There's no evidence he was born in December, but we kind of liked having festivals and exchanging gifts at the end of December. So why don't we keep doing that? So associated with St. Patrick. Oh yeah, I have this behind me all the time, and I'm pretty sure this is supposed to be Dambala. I don't know though. This was a gift to my colleague at where I teach. And we were changing offices, and she said, Sky, would you like it? And I said, Oh my God, would I like it? It's by an artist called Dieu Sol Paul. It was made in 1983. And as far as I can tell, it's got kind of a serpent image, it's got water images, but I don't know. I'm not really able to read the Veve. So if you are an expert in Haitian art or Haitian Loa, and you can correct me if that is or is not Dambala. It confuses me because I feel like Dambala is sometimes presented masculine, sometimes presented feminine, but I don't know. There might be something I'm missing there. Speaking of feminine, let's just look at some of these figures, some of these Loa from the Petro side. But let's talk about the female Loa, the female spirits, which are called Ezruli or Ezrili. All different kinds of terms I've heard for them. I'm just going to use Ezruli because that's the one I saw most often. Just how interesting is this? How interesting is this? Look at this. 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 Do you want to guess what power is associated with this Veve? It's love. It's Ezili, Ezruli, Dantor, who is very dark skinned, and she is the Ezruli of love and motherhood. Now, as far as I can tell, most, maybe all of the Ezruli are represented as being Mother Mary, because there's no female saints. I assume maybe there must be some that are Mary Magdalene. I would love to learn more about the Ezruli because it seems like the ones that I've seen are all just different variations of Madonna, not the singer, mother of Jesus. But what's fascinating is she has a counterpart. She has a counterpart, a different Loa, a different Petrola, Ezili Freda, who is lighter skinned, and she is love, beauty, and luxury. Look at this. I found this image online. Okay. This is the way they're depicted. So think about the weight. Imagine being a woman. Okay. Imagine being a woman and what you're expected to be in society. Doesn't matter what society, it all basically boils down to the same, like the differentiations of what women's roles are, how they're supposed to be presented, how they're supposed to be sexualized or not sexualized, or providers or not providers. And then we have the skin tone difference here, which if you've been studying this class, is very important. So the idea that the one who loves money and beauty is the lighter skinned one. It's like there's a whole sociology class wrapped up in this little battle of Loire. And like you could imagine if you believed in this faith, like feeling the conflict between these as being like conflict within yourself, right? Do you not see how this is a completely fascinating belief system? That, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, this seems to really respond super well to the needs of the people. How many families of Loire are there? Do you remember? Smash the like bucket if you remember how many there are, because I already told you. Leave a comment. Do that thumbs up thing. Subscribe to this channel and to my other channel. I'm listen. This is pretty good stuff, I think. So, show me a little bit of love. Don't make me get Dontor down here, all right? Do you remember how many? 21. There's 21. 21. There's 21 families. Okay. The only other one I'll really talk about because it's the one everyone likes. It's the Boba Fett of Loire. Okay. The Gede, death and fertility. The death and sex family. Who doesn't want the death and sex family? Is it any wonder that the most famous of all the Loire would come from the death and sex family? Of course not. Baron Samedi, the one you see most often. The famous Loire. All right. The the cool one. He is depicted all over the place. There he is in James Bond. There he is with Dr. Facilier from The Princess and the Frog. This kind of idea of who he is, a loi of the dead. He drinks, he smokes, he's married, but he also fornicates with mortals. He loves dirty jokes. And he just sort of is the exhilarating force that draws people's attention. And that's why I wanted to spend a little bit of time with him and more time with Dambala because Dambala, that's super important. Like these are cosmologically important things of essential because the way, as far as I can tell, the way that people perceive of the law is that they intercede directly in their life, that their life is along with. And so this one character, Baron Samedi, with the skull, and it's very dramatic and it's very beautiful and it's just a great image um, is not the most important of all of them. But his ubiquity in popular culture, I think the ubiquity of Baron Samedi in popular culture is intentionally or unintentionally a part of the marginalization of Vodou and Haitian people. Because what one wants to do is just reduce Vodou to being like it's all death and skulls and blood and sacrifices and darkness and cool and right like that's not what it is. I mean, it can be like that a little bit sometimes, but that's not what it is all the time, right? It's a complete belief system. It would be sort of like if nobody understood anything about Christianity except like people just got obsessed with drinking Jesus's blood, right? Like if no one knew anything about Christianity except for drinking wine at communion, and that was like the only thing people talked about, right? Wouldn't that be a strange representation of the faith? Because you're like, no, there's the whole Sermon on the Mount, and the first will be last, and the last will be first, and blessed are the meek. That's way more. Yes, we drink the wine and we think it's blood, and it's very important, but that's not the totality of our faith. So I tell you about Baron Samedi because you will see Baron Samedi, and he is in fact the Baron of Saturdays. Saturdays for the Barons. But he is not the only thing that you should know about this faith, nor is this darker side of Vodou. The darker side of Vodou is what gets most of the attention. People like Bokor, or Hungans, or Mambos for hire, who are seen to serve themselves more than the Loa. Those who serve the Loa with both hands, with the good and the bad. So, not just helping yourself, but hurting your enemies. This is where we get into the territory of discussing and having Vodou as being seen as something evil and bad, because there are some people who believe that there are some people who try to use it for these purposes. The representation of this is completely out of whack with reality, but it does exist in some part. So no pretending it's right. So they might create an oanga, a talisman. Yeah, it's not a voodoo doll, but like that's where I guess people got the idea. And they are the primary force behind an extremely minor fringe belief of the voodoo faith, of the Vodou faith. Extremely fringe and minor belief. Not at all the most important thing, or even the second most important thing, or even the 10,000th most important thing, but it is the thing that it is best known for: zombies. I read a Manchester Guardian article in which it said the most popular Haitian word in the world is zombie, explains Richard Morris, a musician and owner of Port-au-Prince's Hotel Olofson. which insists he never met undead creatures. And that is a reflection of the world more than it is of Haiti. Facts. Okay. The fact that we know about zombies is not because it's such an important thing in Haiti, it's because it's important to us. It's important to us. It matters to us that we took something that was Haitian and made it into something that scares us. That we wanted to focus not on the spirits of water or the spirits of fire, the spirits of perseverance, love, all those things. We want to focus on essentially an urban myth of a certain kind of bad priest or selfish priest who, as we will study in the next class, figures out some way to take possession of someone's body and have them look as though they are dead and walking. The homework that I'm going to be giving my class. So, it's Halloween, and I don't want to pretend like zombies don't matter because they do. But like that last quote said, it says more about the world than it does about Haiti. But what I'm doing, and you can follow along with this if you'd like, is I am having them watch the movie I Walked with a Zombie. Okay. And I am asking them to answer questions about it. You know what? One second. Let me change this. This, I'm not saying homework. Homework. Watch these movies. Okay. One second. Now you can see how I make classes. Okay. So their homework is to watch these movies. White Zombie, the first zombie movie from 1932, and I Walked with a Zombie in 1943. What I am going to be focusing on is the way in which the way zombies are used now is essentially our fear of a lack of autonomy and our fear that consumerism has overtaken our spiritual selves. That's what zombies are about now. Ever since George A. Romero released Night of the Living Dead in 1968, the word zombie has been totally changed. But zombies did exist and they were born in Haiti, and the whole idea does come from it. So, what I'm doing is I'm getting the students ready to talk about the American occupation of Haiti. The United States of America, occupied from 1915 until 1934. It's a very, very long time. And I'm going to be talking a lot about it in this class. I'm going to be talking about the ways in which these movies and movies like these helped to dehumanize and subjugate and mistreat the people of Haiti. While at the same time, both of these movies, you know, both American movies, although I Walked with the Zombies, directed by a great French director. They're both great movies, by the way. Regardless of their problematic elements, they're both great old horror movies. Despite the fact that I think it's fair to say that they are both colonizing in their perspectives, there are still elements which are going to show the post slavery, post colonial nature of Haiti as it was perceived of at the time. Despite their problematic nature, there is actually quite a bit of truth in them. So that's what we're going to do for next class. The rejection and demonizing. The rejection, demonizing, and ridiculing of any African or African derived religion are weapons used against people of African descent, a tool of white supremacy. Hey, so if you want to go watch my review of the album Vodou by D'Angelo, I'm going to make the point that he actually talks about in the liner notes being around Jimi Hendrix because he recorded it in Hendrix's studio and listening to the music of Marvin Gaye. And I think he's intentionally trying to be I think he's serving the law. I think that D'Angelo's voodoo is him serving the law. Now he doesn't. I don't think he's of Haitian descent. I don't know if he's thinking of voodoo in its sort of West African sense, or its Louisiana sense, or its Haiti sense, because there's all different kinds of religions that spawned from West Africa due to the transatlantic slave trade. But I do think he is trying and succeeding to connect to this sense. The final song on that album is called Africa. And that's just where I'll end today's class, which is in this cosmological worldview, Guinea, which is a term they use for Africa, that like heaven or like the place where you go to rest after your death is Africa. It's like returning to Africa. And that's the thing that Christianity was a severing. It was just another part of the severing of people of African descent from Africa itself. So both the album and this faith place such an importance on a kind of mythical Africa as being the place that is connected to the past that was stolen from them. Okay, there you go. I hope this was interesting. Um, I'm a huge soccer fan, and I did not watch the end of the Marseille game because I wanted to make this. So please do like a thumbs up and all that stuff. All right. Until next time, there's the camera.